Qualified, professional, and compassionate doctors talking real solutions to real health problems.
Welcome to the DocTalk show. This month is World Malaria Month, and this week we shall be commemorating the World Malaria Day that's due to take place on the 25th of April, that's this Thursday, this year. So, in this episode, we are going to understand more about what World Malaria Month means, because it's a global celebration of the efforts against malaria. And with me in the studio to discuss this topic is the Assistant Commissioner of the Malaria Program at the Ugandan Ministry of Health, Dr. Opigo Jimmy. And again, I am your host for the evening, Dr. Darius Sowachi, a physician. So let us dive into understanding more about World Malaria Month, what exactly it means, and why is it so important to be celebrated in today's world. So, Dr. Opigo, once again, we thank you for coming up to educate the public on the initiatives, the efforts that so many countries have taken in the fight against malaria. I know this is celebrated in a single day and in a single month. So before we go into understanding more about the World Malaria Month, maybe you could give us a historical perspective of malaria as a disease. Many people know about its transmission, they know about the treatments, but they don't really know what it was like back in the day when malaria is just being discovered. So give us an insight about malaria in the early days.
Now, malaria is one of the old diseases, ancient diseases. In fact, archaeology has found it in Egyptian mummies. Initially, it was not known what really causes it, and that's why it got the name malaria, from mal air, bad air. People thought if you went in the valleys, that cold air from the valley, and the valley are wetlands where mosquitoes breed. And that's why even our people think if it rains on you, if you're out and you get cold, you get malaria.
So it was that feelings in the air.
Yes. Okay. It has caused immense suffering to humanity over the years. Most exhibitions, even exploration was heavily impacted by malaria. As a result, there was a lot of research to find out what causes it. After people got what is called the germ theory, a long time ago, people didn't know germs cause diseases. It was after the germ theory.
It was all on, people thought it was witchcraft, bad goods or demons.
Yeah. When they realized there are some germs, they started to look for what is this germ which causes malaria. And it was discovered in 1890 by Charles. Then after that, they started looking for what actually moves it from person to person. And Ronald Rose discovered that it is the mosquito bite, finding it in the salivary glands of the mosquitoes. In 1897. Now, mosquito nets had been used for a very long time, but just to control the nuisance of a mosquito bite. And after that, a research was done. People were kept in mosquito net to see if it has a role. Okay. Also, by that time, people were aware about cinchona, that plant bark from which quinine was extracted. But it was only available for aristocrats and royals, because it was very, very expensive.
And quinine was the first anti-malarial drug to be discovered.
Yeah. Okay. So focus was ended up being mostly on mosquito control. So that is the background. But about World Malaria Day, this is an initiative of African Union. African Union passed what initially was called Africa Malaria Day. Because as you are aware, over 80% of malaria remains in Africa. It was passed so that the issue of malaria is highlighted, is high profiled, and people are reminded that there is a problem which we need to focus on. Eventually, the World Health Assembly adopted it as an international day. We worked with members of parliament, as you are aware. Last year, on 5th of April, they launched the Parliamentary Forum on Malaria. And the president in the same event launched the mass action against malaria. That approach, which is aiming at mobilizing individuals, communities, districts, other sectors, leaders, and the region against malaria was launched. So we sat with members of parliament to design their action plan. And they have come with very beautiful things. They are going to work on a malaria act. They are going to work on a malaria fund. And they are going to mobilize communities. All of them have committed to have malaria-free constituencies.
How big is this malaria disease in the country? What's it like?
The malaria disease is at the moment the leading public health program in the world. It has delivered more lives saved than any public health program. It has averted so many sicknesses. Within the country, we have done a lot of things. We like first to report the progress, because it is a moment also to celebrate progress and look at what still needs to be done and how we are going to position ourselves to do it. Traditionally, our messaging has been that malaria is 40% of all attendance to outpatient clinics. That has drastically changed.
What is it?
It has come to 23% of outpatient attendance. In fact, in a number of places, it is no longer the number one reason for which people come to see a doctor. In many places, it is no longer number one. We have reduced the attendance due to malaria by over 40%. Also, the deaths have reduced by over 40%. In fact, malaria-induced lack of blood, anemia, used to account for over 30% of blood needs in this country. Uganda Blood Transfusion Services has just reported that we are using just now 20% of the blood because we get less severe malaria. Okay, this, of course, is because now people are using the tools we have given them, but also they seek care early before it becomes complicated.
The early treatment.
The early treatment. Of course, also treatment has been made available and subsidized. This has brought a lot of results which we would like to celebrate during this month.
Okay, and we appreciate the efforts of the government in helping us realize some of these important milestones. The deaths that were associated with malaria have reduced. Malaria is no longer, in some places of the country, it's no longer the number one reason why people visit the doctor. There are so many other reasons, but malaria, as we can see, as you've heard from the expert, the malaria expert, the statistics are very encouraging. The burden of disease is slowly reducing, and I'm sure in the upcoming years it will no longer become an issue in the country. So after the break, we'll come back more to understand more about these successes. What are the success stories in the fight against malaria? Send in your questions and comments on our social media platforms that are available, Twitter, Facebook. You can also log on to our YouTube page in case you've missed some of these shows and watch some of the shows uploaded onto the internet. Don't go away.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.